Hey guys, King of Charmanders here. So, I am releasing this video early because I know it's I think it's like 3 of Ultra League, but you know what? I invented the most consistent timeout strategy for Ultra League in preseason and season 1, and guess what? There's a new team for season 2. So, I've never done a video on the timeout strat for Ultra League. It's really long and it's really complicated and really technical. I do multiple shoutcasts in this video to show you just how difficult it is to time your opponent out. It's a fun thing to do, especially if you're using Blissey, because I love Blissey. Blissey, baby. Make sure you all hail Blissey, because Blissey is queen. So, the timeout strategy is this. You fire as many charge moves as possible, or you literally let your opponent beat you to death without them realizing that they're actually helping you because you are waiting for the clock to run out. So, without further ado, here is this timeout strategy for Ultra League Go Battle League. Let's get started. Alright, so if you look over here, we now have, here's the win conditions for the Ultra League timeout strat. Now, the win conditions are, there's 2 win conditions. 1, you have a higher HP overall percentage remaining when the time is up. For example, let's say your Blissey's in the green and their Guillotine is in the red and you both only have 1 mod left. You win because you have a higher HP percentage when the timer runs out. Or you actually have more opponent alive than your opponent. For example, you have 3 Pokemon alive and your opponent will only have 2. You'll see me do this strategy a lot, the second one a lot, when I do my shoutcast for my matches, because you will see that my opponent, I will purposely leave my 3rd mon alive and attempt to take out my opponent's 2nd one, and hopefully he doesn't leave it in. If I take out the opponent's mon and they have 2 to my 3, I have a huge advantage and all I have to do is run the clock. You'll see that a lot. But those are the 2 win conditions. All battles have a 5-minute time limit. Your goal with this timeout strat is to make the timer go as long as possible. And because Ultra League has so many bulky Pokemon, there's a lot of options when you use debuffs. For the strategy to work, you have to have mons that are able to either fire a ridiculously large amount of charge moves so that you can run the clock, and or, my style, debuffs. Because a lot of times when you see the timer running out without using debuffs, usually you're having Dragon Claws fire off when you have like a Giratina matchup, or you have Lapras on Lapras, or you have Cresselia on Cresselia, for example, because you guys are firing off charge moves like no tomorrow. And it's really easy to lose track of time. For this strategy, you want the timer to run out. But here are your 2 win conditions. Again, having a higher HP overall percentage or having more Pokemon alive than your opponent. I will better explain these win conditions and how to do this during the shoutcast, and you will also see the lineups that I used. Back in the day, I used a different line. I'm using a line that's perfect for this current day meta. Now, here is a disclaimer. If you are trying this strat, you can win with it. However, if you expect to consistently 5-0 with it, be very careful of your expectations. This strategy is meant for fun. It is also ridiculously high skilled and ridiculously hard to pull off. So, use this strategy for fun, but at your own risk. But mostly, use this strategy to have fun. And if you can pull it off, it's it's so much fun to pull it off. It's a blast. Alright, so we're going to start a battle here with the timeout. Here's the squad on the right. I have Cresselia, Suicune, and Blissey and their movesets. We start off winning the lead pretty good here. We have our Moon Blast, Cresselia, and we go for the Moon Blast, and they switch out into the Snorlax. Now, this is good because my opponent switched out. Since my opponent switched out, hopefully we get a debuff here. Okay, we don't get the debuff. Okay, that's really sucks. Okay, you know what? That's okay. So I'm going to switch into Blissey, and the reason I'm switching into Blissey here is because Licks don't do as much damage on Blissey. And also, hopefully my opponent has a superpower. Okay, hopefully they're going to body slam me to death. But you can run the clock with Blissey pretty well until you can switch her back out so that she's safe. As you see here, I'm actually doing this is a strat that you'll very rarely find yourselves in, but letting your opponent hit your Blissey. This is called Blissey is Bay because Blissey is Bay, and Blissey is just going to eat as many charge moves as she possibly can here. Because superpower debuffs to Snorlax, I want my... they're actually running the clock for me. So in this scenario, I don't have to actually run the clock. You're doing it for me! So I'm going to stop attacking here. See, Blissey's just kind of chilling. She's getting she's getting really wet, so... Yeah, she's basically, so this is like one of the few instances. This is the second time I've used this strat, but literally this is the first time with the superpower Snorlax. And as you see, she is literally, my opponent thought I was lagging. I was praying he was lagging. I pounded him down because I don't want Blissey to take too much damage. And now we have the 3-2 scenario. Now, with the 3-2 scenario, I mean, I have 3 mons remaining, and my opponent only has 2. So, we throw back in the flying Jetson thingy that's not even shiny called Cresselia, and now my opponent throws in Giratina. Giratina's thrown in, and then he's just going to take it. We get the debuff here, which is absolutely incredible. You want your opponent's mons to be debuffed as much as possible. Debuff mons means you can take more damage. And now my opponent elects to switch out because I did debuff. There's also that thing there. If your opponent is debuffed, it makes your opponent more reluctant to give up their switch advantage. I'm going to keep Moonblasting here. Since my opponent ran the clock a lot with my Blissey, I'm kind of sensing that hopefully the timer is almost up. If not, that's okay because I have Suicune alive still, and Suicune can do a lot of stalling with bubbles. What I mean by bubbles, Bubbles Beam. You know, this is my bubbles. As you see here, I'm just going to go straight for the Bubble Beam. My opponent's going to keep firing off Dark Pulse. That actually helps me out because I'm still trying to run the time. Now, Dark Pulse does heavy damage. We're going to attempt to debuff him down a lot, hopefully. But I can expect the timer to come out pretty soon here. I don't like running a timer. For example, like I put a clock to remind myself how many minutes are left. Because then I'll naturally think like, okay, I stop focusing on the battle and I focus on the time remaining. With the timeout strategy, I don't recommend having a clock. If you want to, it's okay. But in this case, watch pretty soon. I can sense that this match is almost over and the timer is going to show up pretty soon. Now, we're going to fire, I fired way over like 20, definitely over like 20 charge moves have been fired off. We're going to fire bubble beams on bubble beams. My opponent is actually going to lose here. I switch out to my Blissey. Actually, not to my Blissey, that's my Flying Fortress Cresselia. Because here's what's going to happen. He's going to take out my Cresselia. Oh, you gunk shot it! I actually got the gunshot! Let's go! We're going to take out the Cresselia. It's going to take out the Cresselia, but look, we also take out the Muck. Now we have the 1-2. Now, what I mean by 1-2, if you look, there's only one Pokemon remaining. This Bubble Beam will run the rest of the clock, and because we have one more Pokemon than our opponent, we win this match. Go, Blissey. Now, those are just, you can see how hard it is to do this strategy. It takes a whole lot of fast decisions, really quick decisions, and you really have to think about how much your Pokemon can take, because even though Cresselia and Suicune can debuff your opponent's mons, you have to be very careful. But as you see, it's a very fun strategy, incredibly sweaty, especially for this season. We're going to roll over to the next match soon. Here it is. We have MRN, 8MRN as our opponent. All these matches are at 1.25, by the way. Now we get the Lapras and Cresselia. This is great because if I could debuff this Lapras, we have a great position here because our opponent is going to try to keep on surfing us. At least I hope they keep on surfing us. Surfing only takes, I believe, 4 shards to get ice shards to get to, and it doesn't do a lot of damage against Cresselia. I actually win this matchup if you look at pvpoke.com because we got the Moonblast buff. That means Lapras no longer beats Cresselia convincingly. You have to do a lot of sweat. So it's a shield scenario thing. But yeah, as you see, surfs are going to go off. I'm hoping that I get a debuff here because if I get the Moonblast, that means I can tank a lot more surfs. Unfortunately, my opponent is making me really wet, and surf is up, and surfs is going off. Surf's up in his side. Can you please give me... Debuffs are 30%, by the way. So if you're wondering what the chances are, it's like a 30% chance. Still better than nothing. As you see here, we failed to get the debuff in consecutively like 4 Moonblasts, and surfs are going off. So timer's being ran here, so our timer is going off, which is good. At this point, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to fire a Moonblast, and I'm going to try to Q1, I think. I believe I try to Q1. Or I'll try to Q a charge move here, or break my opponent's shields. This is great. We got a shield. And now you're going to see me. I'm going to block this one, I believe, and then I'm going to switch into my next Mon. Like I said, I employed a 3-2 strat a lot, so I'm going to switch out of my Mon right now. As soon as I get a Moonblast, I switch out and I Q that Moonblast. You want to Q as many moves as you can. And what I mean by Q is that try to Q a Mon. If you have to switch into it, you have something charged up. That way you can run the last minutes of the clock or you're good. In this case, watch what I'm doing. Now, serves don't do a lot to my Suicune, so I am letting the Lapras hit my Suicune with as many steps as I can. This is, like I said, this is a very advanced strategy. Be very careful how you do the whole, like, let your Mon get hit like that, because it can work against you. I'm going to keep firing up the Elect Ascendant at Cresselia, which is amazing because I can fire off Bubble Beams like no tomorrow. This is great. So I'm going to be able to get 2 Bubble Beams off here. Like I said, be very careful of how you do the let yourself get hit strat. If you let yourself get hit, make sure you resist those moves and make sure you are confident. Confidence is key for this strat. Make sure you are confident that you can keep that Mon alive, or if you need that Mon for the future. So he's going to fire off a Future Sight. This makes me dangerous. I'm going to queue a Bubble Beam and I'm going to send in Blissey at this point. That thing is that Jetson's flying debuff thing called Cresselia, our possible debuff thing, is debuff. So they elect to switch out and they send in this Lucario. Now this is horrible. The Lucario comes out, and I am basically, my Blissey is just, oh my gosh, this is horrifying. You never want to be locked in against a Steel type, essentially. If you haven't ran the clock, if they have a Steel type lineup with Blissey, essentially they win. So my job here is to hope that I can get this Psychic off, bait this slash shield, and since I have those charge moves queued up, I can hopefully pull off a win here. That sounds really sweaty, right? That's because it is. As you see here, I'm looking at my switch timer, and this is the sweatiest timeout match I've ever had. Alright, my win condition here is I have to take this Lucario out and pray that the timer runs out. Sounds really hard, right? Yes, because it is. So I'm firing. So here goes the Moonblast. The Moonblast is going to fire. I'm going to switch and fire off my Bubble Beam. See how sweaty that strategy is? Queuing your charge moves gives you that last minute chance to debuff either take out your opponent to get the Pokemon advantage, or to just run the timer. In this case, the timer is on. Do you see the timer? The timer's off. We take out we're gonna take out the shiny Lucario, and because we have more Pokemon than our opponent, we win. That is the sweatiest match I've ever had for timing out anyone in my entire time I've ever played GBL. That was an insane match. I have never tried that hard. Like I said, the reason why we won that is because we had 2 Pokemon remaining and my opponent only had 1 Pokemon left. But you see the power of queuing charge moves. I will always try to queue as many moves as I can to have that last Hail Mary of either running the clock or trying to win the match or trying to get Pokemon advantage like you see. Now, like I said there, that's why I don't like seeing the clock. I had to make like 15 steps in the span of like 5 seconds. Or like a 15-step flat in 10 seconds. It was ridiculous. Now we get another opponent. Now that, like I said, that was the sweatiest match I ever had. The sweatiest timeout match I ever had. In all the seasons I've done, I've never pulled off a win that ridiculous. Now we get the Cresselia into a Mewtwo. This is kind of weird because depending on this Mewtwo's moveset, we both resist each other's fast moves. Confusion is resisted by my Flying Jetson thingy. And my Flying Jetson thingy also is resisted because Psycho Cuts are resisted. Now, Psycho Cuts pure purpose is to gather energy anyways, so here we get the debuff. This is great. We need it. It's a 30% chance, but you know, I will take as many debuffs as I possibly can because this means I don't have to shield this. And it's an Earthquake. Oh, that doesn't do as much damage as I thought, especially pure debuff. This is awesome. So we're going to keep firing off Moonblast Night on tomorrow. Hopefully we get another debuff, but as you see, 1 debuff is more than enough for us to be able to stall pretty healthily with our Cresselia. I'm going to keep going for the Moonblast here. Going to keep hoping for this debuff here. Hopefully my opponent lets this Mewtwo go. Now, if my opponent kind of senses what's going on, they're going to switch out of their Mon and try to keep their Mon alive. They give up switch advantage, but that means they are aware of your strategy, which kind of sucks because a key component is your opponent has no idea what you're doing. As you see here, my opponent is aware of what's going on. They switch into their Gyarados. I'm going to fire this Moonblast. I am hoping this debuffs my opponent. Please do. Please, please, please. 30% is a lot to ask for, but you know, I'm asking for this moment, please. We grab a shield. Unfortunately, we don't get to do it, but we do grab a shield, so that's okay. My opponent is going to try to get a crunch off over here. This is definitely a crunch. I'm going to shield the first one. You always want to shield the first move. And then I'm going to Bubble Beam, and then as we debuff down, then you can start taking moves. But like I said, my opponent is kind of aware of what might be going on, or they switched out because they realized I don't want to lose Arbor Mewtwo, or to save it for a sack shield for later on in the match. Now we're going to keep running the clock here. As you see here, I'm just going to take the remaining crunches. It's okay at this point. As you see, Gyarados still hits really hard, but our goal here is to run the clock as much as we can. And that means by firing up bubbles like no tomorrow, my opponent, and making your attack debuff as much as possible. Now at this point, I'm going to switch to using Ice Beam. I'm hoping my opponent does not shield this. The reason I'm doing this is because I want the Pokemon advantage at this point. Because my opponent, we're still matched up on 3-3, I don't feel comfortable. So I'm going to fire Ice Beams hoping my opponent does not shield this. And they do not. This is beautiful because now I can snarl down this Gyarados. I can queue up a move and I can switch out to Blissey. Or I see the Registeel, so I'm like, oh no. Now this is horrible because it's Registeel. Remember what I said about Steel types make this an incredibly sweaty battle or almost an automatic loss? I'm going to queue up a charge move here. Actually, I'm going to fire off as many Bubble Beams as I possibly can. And now here's what sucks about this. My opponent has the switch clock back, so I'm going to switch into Blissey. And this is a lot to ask for Blissey because my opponent can switch out, clear the debuff. But this is great because I can smack down this Mewtwo. Mewtwo gets smacked down, and I am praying that the timer comes up at this point because now I'm literally running the clock. My opponent successfully debates my shield with that Flash Cannon, which really sucks because I always hate being in this matchup. I'm hoping that we ran the clock as much as we could and the timer appears soon because now it's clutch time. My Blissey is just psyching. I could go for the beam, but psychic is the play here to run the clock, and I'm praying, come on clock, where are you at, clock? Come on clock, where you at? Hey clock, help me, please. My opponent still has the shield. There it is. There's the clock. Oh my gosh. Now this is this is so sweaty because now I need to get like 2 charge moves off. I can still have 1 Mon die and but this is not necessary. Even if my opponent takes out my Blissey, I will still have my 2 Pokemon remaining, so I will still win this match. And this is GG's. Oh my gosh, I hate these scenarios, but because I gave that extra breathing room, I have 2 Pokemon, as you see with my menu. Timer runs out. As soon as I send in my next Mon, I win this match. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This timeout strat is incredibly sweaty and incredibly difficult to pull off. You guys have a wonderful day. Don't forget to like and sub and check out my next video. Love you guys. Have a wonderful day.